I have presided over this courtroom for more decades than I care to count. And let me tell you, you learn to spot the different flavors of entitlement the moment they walk through those heavy wooden doors. You have the petty thieves who feign ignorance. You have the aggressive bullies who try to intimidate the system. But the most toxic, the most insufferable kind of arrogance, it is the kind born from generational wealth. It is the absolute delusion that a massive bank account and a recognizable last name make you immune to the laws that govern the rest of society. Let me tell you about the afternoon Julian Sterling Vance stepped into my courtroom. He was 25 years old, the sole heir to a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire based out of Manhattan. He drove a custom matte white Lamborghini Huracan, and he was standing before me for a citation that would make any decent human being sick to their stomach. He was clocked doing 85 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour hospital zone, not on a desolate midnight highway, but 85 miles per hour right past the emergency room entrance of Mercy General. This was an active zone constantly flooded with incoming ambulances, vulnerable patients in wheelchairs, and exhausted nurses. The citation file on my desk was thick and infuriating: reckless driving, criminal speeding, and failure to yield to a pedestrian at a crosswalk. The police report explicitly noted that his Lamborghini had missed a mother pushing a medical stroller by mere inches. But did Julian Vance show up with a high-priced defense attorney and a bowed head, ready to show even a fraction of remorse? Oh, absolutely not. Julian believed that his trust fund was a magical shield that could rewrite reality. He strutted into my courtroom at 1:00 p.m., sharp wearing a tailor-made Italian suit, loafers that cost more than my bailiff's yearly salary, and a solid gold Patek Philippe watch that blindly caught the courtroom lights. He carried no briefcase, no notes, just a smug, effortless grin. He completely ignored the officer who wrote him the ticket, bypassed the seating area where regular citizens were nervously waiting their turn, and leaned casually against the defense table as if he were waiting for a valet to fetch his car. I watched him from the bench. He had the polished, glowing skin of someone who had never faced a real consequence in his life. He looked at me not as a judge to be respected, but as a minor, irritating obstacle in his schedule. In his mind, he wasn't here to face accountability. He was here to swat away a mosquito. He thought his money had already bought his victory, but he was about to learn that my courtroom is the ultimate equalizer. "Julian Sterling Vance," my clerk called out, her voice cutting through the low murmur of the crowded courtroom. Julian didn't rush. He pushed himself off the edge of the defense table, smoothed an invisible wrinkle from his immaculate jacket, and strolled up to the podium. "Present, Your Honor," he said. His voice was smooth, dripping with the kind of practiced, effortless charm usually reserved for charity galas and high-stakes boardroom negotiations. I peered over my glasses, letting the silence stretch. It is a tactic I have used for decades to gauge a defendant's nerve. Most people fidget. They look at their feet, or they swallow hard. Julian just smiled back, subtly checking his reflection in the polished mahogany of the podium. "Mr. Vance," I began, my tone completely flat and unamused. "You are standing before this court facing severe charges: criminal speeding, reckless endangerment, and failure to yield to a pedestrian in a designated hospital zone. You were clocked at 85 miles per hour in a 25 zone, nearly running down a mother and her child. How do you plead?" Julian chuckled. An actual audible chuckle in my courtroom. "Not guilty, Your Honor. And frankly, I'd like to motion for an immediate dismissal of these charges. The citation is fundamentally flawed." "Flawed?" I asked, leaning forward, my voice dropping an octave. "Did the radar gun magically malfunction? Was the arresting officer legally blind?" "No, Your Honor. The officer was simply unaware of the legal doctrine of exigent circumstances," Julian replied. He leaned his elbows on the podium, treating the bench as if we were casually debating over martinis at a country club. "The law clearly provides exceptions for true medical emergencies. I was operating my vehicle under extreme duress to save a life. My presence here today is, quite frankly, a gross waste of taxpayer money." I looked down at the police report, then back up at his glowing, unbothered face. "A medical emergency, Mr. Vance? In a two-seater Lamborghini? Were you transporting a donor heart in your glove compartment?" "I was the first responder to a crisis, Your Honor," Julian said, his face suddenly adopting a mask of faux gravity. "My grandfather, Arthur Vance, perhaps you've heard of him, he owns half the commercial real estate in this district, was experiencing a severe cardiac event at his penthouse across the city. The family physician called me directly. He told me every single second counted. Julian paused, looking around the room to ensure the gallery was hanging on his every word. I was rushing to Mercy General to physically prep the surgical team and secure his VIP trauma suite before the ambulance even arrived. I was driving fast, yes. I don't deny the speed. But I was driving to save the patriarch of my family. I was making a split-second decision between a traffic ticket and a funeral. A VIP trauma suite, I repeated, letting the absolute absurdity of the phrase hang heavy in the sterile air of the courtroom. Tell me, Mr. Vance, since when does Mercy General, a public hospital, take room reservations like a boutique hotel? And more importantly, since when does a 25-year-old real estate heir with a business degree hold the medical authority to prep a surgical team? Julian didn't miss a beat. He was well trained in the art of the pivot. Your Honor, when your family donates the wing, the Arthur Vance cardiovascular wing, to be exact, the hospital administration tends to listen when you call. My grandfather's personal physician instructed me to get there immediately. It was a matter of life and death. The necessity defense clearly applies here. I chose the lesser evil of a traffic violation to prevent the greater evil of my grandfather's demise. He stood tall, shooting his cuffs, glancing back at the gallery to see if they were properly awed by his heroism and his family's philanthropy. He was playing the saving a life card, completely wrapped in a thick, insulated layer of "We fund the hospital." It was a masterclass in manipulation, designed to make me look like a heartless bureaucrat if I dared to punish him. Is that right? I said, picking up my pen and tapping it rhythmically against the wooden block of my bench. So you were in constant communication with the family physician. You were given a direct medical directive, and you went straight from your grandfather's penthouse to Mercy General. Without hesitation, Julian stated firmly, his chin raised in defiance. I didn't even stop to lock the front door. I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and drove as safely as the urgent circumstances would allow. Safely, I scoffed, my patience wearing dangerously thin. 85 miles per hour through a crosswalk is many things, Mr. Vance, but safe is certainly not one of them. However, if what you are saying is the absolute truth, if there was a verified, life-threatening medical emergency involving the patriarch of your family, and you were acting under the direct, urgent instruction of a physician, then, legally speaking, we do have a complex situation to evaluate. Julian smirked. The arrogant little grin crept right back onto his face. He thought he had me cornered. He thought his carefully constructed story had worked, just like his father's expensive lawyers probably assured him it would. I'm glad you see reason, Your Honor, he said, shifting his weight and reaching for his jacket button, fully preparing to walk out the door. If we could just expedite the dismissal, I really should be getting back to my grandfather's bedside. His recovery requires my continuous presence. Stay exactly where you are, Mr. Vance, I snapped, my voice cracking through the room like a whip. The smugness instantly vanished from his face, replaced by a flicker of genuine irritation. I haven't dismissed a single thing. You claim this was a life-or-death emergency. Do you have any proof with you? A medical record? A sworn affidavit from this family physician? I didn't think I'd need to bring my grandfather's highly confidential medical charts to a municipal traffic court, he replied smoothly, though I noticed his jaw tighten just a fraction. But I can easily have our corporate legal team forward the hospital admission logs to your clerk by this afternoon. That won't be necessary, I said softly, folding my hands and leaning back in my chair. Because in my courtroom, we don't wait for your lawyers to curate the evidence. We verify the truth right now. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning unit. Julian's smirk was gone. He looked at me, then at his expensive loafers, then back at me. He was trying to calculate his next move, trying to figure out how to play a game where the rules hadn't been bought in advance. I'm not sure I understand, Your Honor, he said, his voice losing its buttery smoothness. Verify how? Medical records are protected under HIPAA. I am well aware of federal privacy laws, Mr. Vance, I replied, pulling the phone on my desk slightly closer. But we don't need to discuss your grandfather's specific medical condition. We only need to verify his location and his admission to Mercy General. And as a judge, I have the authority to confirm emergency exigent circumstances directly with the hospital administration, particularly when a defendant uses those circumstances to justify nearly killing a pedestrian. I picked up the receiver. Bailiff, please get me the chief administrator on duty at Mercy General. Julian shifted his weight. For the first time, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. His eyes darted toward the heavy wooden doors at the back of the courtroom. Your Honor, I really must object. This is a highly irregular procedure for a simple traffic citation. My father's attorneys will overruled. I cut him off sharply. This stopped being a simple traffic citation the moment you decided to use a life or death emergency as an excuse for reckless endangerment. If your grandfather is truly in a VIP trauma suite, then a quick phone call will confirm your heroic narrative and we can all go home. If not, I let the threat hang in the air. The phone clicked and the bailiff nodded to me. I pressed the speaker button so the entire courtroom could hear. Mercy General Administration. This is Dr. Aris. A tired, professional voice crackled through the speaker. Good afternoon, Dr. Aris. This is Judge Judy from the Municipal Court, I said clearly. I am currently presiding over a case involving a Mr. Julian Sterling Vance. He claims his grandfather, Arthur Vance, was rushed to your facility today with a severe cardiac event requiring immediate VIP-level trauma prep. Can you confirm if an Arthur Vance has been admitted to your emergency department in the last 3 hours? There was a pause. The sound of typing echoed over the line. Julian stood rigid at the podium, his knuckles white as he gripped the wood. He was staring at the speakerphone as if it were a live grenade. Judge, Dr. Aris finally said, her voice tinged with confusion. I'm looking at our admissions log for the entire day. We have no record of an Arthur Vance being admitted to the ER, the cardiac unit, or any VIP suite. In fact, we haven't treated anyone by that name in over 6 months. A collective gasp swept through the gallery. The grand illusion, the untouchable shield of the Vance legacy, had just shattered into a million pieces. I looked directly at Julian. The color had completely drained from his face. The confident, untouchable air was gone, replaced by a terrified young man caught in a massive, undeniable lie. Thank you, Dr. Aris. That will be all, I said, disconnecting the call. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. I slowly turned my gaze back to the defendant. Well, Mr. Vance, I said, my voice dangerously calm. It appears we have a slight discrepancy in your heroic narrative. Would you like to explain to this court why Mercy General has no record of the man you were supposedly rushing to save? Julian's mouth opened, but for a long, agonizing moment, no sound came out. He looked like a fish gasping for air on the deck of a boat. The polished, expensive vocabulary he had been weaponizing against my court had completely vanished. Your Honor, he finally stammered, his voice cracking into a high-pitched sound of pure panic. There must be a miscommunication. The family physician. He must have rerouted the ambulance to Mount Sinai, or Presbyterian. I was just following the initial instructions. Stop, I commanded, raising my hand. The absolute finality in my voice echoed off the wooden walls. Just stop, Mr. Vance. Put down the shovel. You are digging a hole so deep you will never see daylight again. He froze, his hands gripping the edges of the podium so hard his knuckles turned white. He was still trying to cling to the illusion, still hoping that if he just threw enough excuses at the wall, something would stick. You see, Julian, I said, dropping the formal title to let him know exactly how small he was in my eyes. The problem with believing you are the center of the universe is that you feel an overwhelming, uncontrollable urge to broadcast your life to the rest of the world. I reached over to my clerk, Quinn, who handed me a digital tablet. While you were standing there, spinning this absolutely disgusting fairy tale about your dying grandfather, I had my clerk open one single application, an app that arrogant, entitled individuals like yourself simply cannot resist using. I turned the screen around so he could see it. It was Instagram. This is your public profile, is it not? J. Vance Official? I asked, my eyes locked onto his terrified face. He swallowed hard. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Let the record show, I announced to the silent room, reading from the screen, that at 12:15 p.m. today, exactly 10 minutes before Officer Miller clocked you doing 85 miles per hour through a hospital crosswalk, you posted a video to your story. A video taken from the driver's seat of your Lamborghini. I tapped the screen. The deafening roar of a V10 engine filled the courtroom, followed by Julian's own voice, loud and obnoxious over a heavy bass track. Traffic on the expressway is a joke, the digital Julian bragged, panning the camera to show his solid gold Patek Philippe watch gripping the steering wheel, taking the city backroads to bypass this mess. Gotta see what this bull can really do. Hampton's White Party, I'm coming for you. Hold the champagne. I paused the video and placed the tablet face down on my bench. The silence that followed was suffocating. A VIP trauma suite? I asked, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You weren't rushing to save your grandfather, Julian. You were rushing to a luxury yacht party in the Hamptons. You used an active hospital zone as your personal racetrack because you didn't want to be late for a glass of champagne. Julian looked like he was about to physically collapse. The reality of what he had just done, committing blatant perjury in a court of law to avoid a speeding ticket, was finally crashing down on his shoulders. The billionaire heir was completely out of moves. The color drained from Julian's face so fast I thought he might actually faint. His hands, previously gripping the podium with defiance, were now trembling slightly. The courtroom, which had been buzzing with low murmurs just minutes before, was now dead silent. Everyone was waiting for his next move. The rich kid who thought he could buy his way out of anything had just been cornered by a free app on a $50 tablet. "Mr. Vance," I said, my voice echoing off the high ceiling. "I asked you a question. Are you going to tell this court why you fabricated a medical emergency, dragged your grandfather's name into it, and wasted this court's time, all because you were speeding to a yacht party in the Hamptons?" Julian stammered. The silver-tongued litigator routine was entirely gone. "Your Honor, I panicked. The officer, he was aggressive. I knew if I got a criminal speeding ticket, my father would. The board of directors. It would be a disaster." "A disaster," I repeated flatly. "Mr. Vance, a disaster is what happens when a 2-ton vehicle traveling at 85 miles per hour hits a pedestrian. A disaster is a mother burying her child because you were late for champagne. A traffic ticket is not a disaster, it is a consequence, something you are clearly unfamiliar with." He looked down, refusing to meet my eye. "I apologize, Your Honor. I'll pay the fine. Whatever the maximum is, I'll pay double. Just, please don't let this go on my permanent record. It will ruin my career before it even starts." "You still don't get it, do you?" I asked, shaking my head in disbelief. "You stand there, caught in a bald-faced lie, committing perjury in a court of law, and your only concern is your career and your reputation? You still think you can just write a check and make this go away?" I leaned forward, clasping my hands on the bench. "Let me explain something to you, Julian. The fine for criminal speeding in a hospital zone is indeed substantial, but the penalty for perjury for lying under oath to a judge to pervert the course of justice is a felony. You are looking at potential jail time." Julian's head snapped up, his eyes wide with genuine terror. "Jail? Your Honor, please. I'm a Vance. I can't go to jail. I'll do anything." "Anything?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," he said quickly, desperately. "Anything. Community service. Massive charitable donations. Just name it." "Good," I said, leaning back, "because I have a very specific form of community service in mind for you. But first, we are going to have a little family reunion." The courtroom hummed with the electric energy of a trapped animal realizing there is no way out. Julian Vance was cornered, and the realization was etched deeply into every line of his pale, sweating face. He had expected to walk in, toss some Latin phrases and a fake medical emergency at a municipal judge, and walk out. Instead, his very freedom was hanging by a thread. "A family reunion, Your Honor," Julian whispered, his voice barely audible. "Yes," I replied, gesturing to the bailiff. "You see, Julian, when a defendant claims they were on an urgent mission to save the life of a prominent public figure like Arthur Vance, I take it very seriously. So seriously, in fact, that while you were waiting in the hall, my clerk didn't just check your Instagram, she also checked the corporate directory for Vance Enterprises." Julian's eyes darted toward the back doors again, the panic fully setting in. "Bring him in," I instructed. The heavy wooden doors swung open, and the murmur in the gallery instantly died. A man walked in. He was in his late 70s, walking with a silver-tipped cane, but his posture was straight as a rod. He wore a sharp, charcoal-gray suit, and his face held the kind of fierce, unyielding authority that had built a real estate empire from the ground up. It was Arthur Vance, the supposedly dying grandfather. He walked slowly down the center aisle, the rhythmic tap-click of his cane echoing in the silent room. He didn't look at the gallery. He didn't look at me. His eyes were fixed solely on his grandson. Julian physically recoiled. "Grandpa, Arthur stopped a few feet from the defense podium. He looked at Julian not with love, but with a cold, terrifying disappointment. "You told a judge I was dying, Julian? To get out of a speeding ticket?" I panicked," Julian repeated, the excuse sounding even more pathetic the second time. "I didn't want Dad to find out about the car. He said if I got another ticket, he'd take it away." "So you decided to commit perjury," Arthur said, his voice gravelly and dangerous. You decided to drag our family name into a courtroom and lie under oath. Do you have any idea what that means for this company? For our reputation? I'm sorry, Julian pleaded, tears finally spilling over. Please, Grandpa, fix this. Talk to her. Pay the fine. I'll never drive the car again. Arthur leaned heavily on his cane, looking at the boy he had given everything to. Fix this? He repeated softly. Julian, I have spent my entire life building something of value. I have paid for your education, your apartments, your cars. I thought I was giving you a head start. But all I did was create a weak, entitled boy who thinks the world exists only to serve his convenience. He turned to look at me, removing his hat. Your Honor, I apologize for the disruption and for the disrespect my grandson has shown this court. Mr. Vance, I said respectfully, I appreciate you coming down on such short notice. I assure you, your health looks excellent. Arthur offered a tight, grim smile. I was actually in a board meeting when your clerk called. Let me be clear, Your Honor. I do not ask for leniency for this boy. He has used our wealth as a shield for too long. Do what you must. The Vance family will not interfere. Arthur Vance let those words hang in the heavy air of the courtroom. The implication was clear. The infinite safety net that Julian had relied on his entire life was officially gone. The shield of wealth had failed him, not because the system couldn't be bought, but because the man holding the checkbook refused to pay the price. Julian stood absolutely paralyzed. He looked at his grandfather, then at me. The reality of his situation was crashing down on him like a physical weight. He wasn't the untouchable heir anymore. He was just a 25-year-old kid facing a felony charge and a furious judge. Thank you, Mr. Vance, I said to Arthur. You are free to return to your board meeting. Arthur nodded once, a sharp, crisp movement. He turned and walked out of the courtroom, his cane clicking against the floor. He didn't look back. The doors swung shut behind him, leaving Julian completely alone. I turned my full attention back to the defendant. The arrogant smirk, the bespoke suit, the expensive watch, none of it mattered now. Julian, I said, my voice cold and steady, you came into my courtroom and treated the justice system like a minor inconvenience. You lied under oath. You fabricated a medical emergency. You risked the lives of innocent people so you wouldn't miss a party. And you did it all because you believed the rules simply did not apply to you. He didn't speak. He just stared at the floor, his shoulders slumped. I could send you to jail today, I continued. I could process the perjury charge and let the district attorney tear you apart. But frankly, I think a few months in a minimum security facility surrounded by other white-collar criminals wouldn't teach you a single thing about the real world. Julian looked up, a glimmer of desperate hope in his eyes. Instead, I said, leaning forward, you are going to learn what actual labor looks like. You are going to learn what it means to serve the community you endangered. I picked up my pen. I am ordering you to complete 500 hours of mandatory community service. But you won't be organizing charity galas or filing paperwork at a nonprofit. You are going to report to the Department of Public Works. You will be assigned to a street sanitation crew. You will wear a high-visibility vest over that Italian suit, and you will spend the entire summer picking up trash on the very streets you treated like your personal racetrack. Julian's jaw dropped. Street sanitation? Your Honor, please. I have asthma. I have delicate... You have an ego problem? I cut him off. And a shovel is the perfect cure. Your driver's license is suspended for exactly 1 year. Your Lamborghini will remain parked. If you miss a single shift, if you are late by 1 minute, or if I receive a single complaint from your supervisor about your attitude, I will unseal the perjury charge and issue a warrant for your arrest immediately. I slammed my gavel down, the sound cracking like thunder. Welcome to the real world, Mr. Vance. Case dismissed.